Lionhearts, it's your old pal Jordan the Lion. How are you all doing today? Great! I hope you said wonderful. I am having a great day. I'm really excited because today we're going to go out and do a vlog on a filming location, a movie that I have loved since I was in high school. Little backstory on this, I guess, is I formed a band when I was in high school. It was like our the last week of my junior year going into summer. I met this dude who was, he knew like some of my friends, and he said, hey, my family's leaving for Europe for the summer, and I want to throw a party, so I want to put together a band, and I want our band to perform at this party. So he said, do you want to play guitar? So I joined up with this. So every day I would go out to his family's house. We had all of our equipment set up in the garage, and we would have a band practice. We'd run through all the songs we were going to do, and then we would go inside and we would watch usually one of 4 movies. We would watch Can't Buy Me Love, Revenge of the Nerds, Caddyshack, or Some Kind of Wonderful. And out of all of those, I have in one way or another vlogged all of those movies except for Some Kind of Wonderful. So today, you know, I've seen it so many times. It was just one of those motivating things when you're in high school. This is a movie about an artist and an outcast who asks out the most popular girl in school. She's just had a fight with her boyfriend, and so she accepts, and this just kind of follows the lead up to their big date. So we're gonna go out to a place called Wilmington where most of the houses were filmed. I'm gonna show you some of the filming locations, and we're gonna move all over LA, and I'm gonna paint the picture of this movie. It's Eric Stoltz, Leah Thompson, Mary Stuart Masterson, directed by Howard Deutsch. To me, fantastic, like top of the line 80s movie. Days with Jordan the Lion, it begins now. And much like all great 80s movies, this has a fantastic soundtrack. So right here we see this shot about 3 times in the movie. The first time we see it is when Keith is walking home, and you see him passing by this building as he walks home. I'll take you over to where the house was, but we see it also when he tries to borrow Watt's car and it won't start. So Amanda Jones and Shane end up giving him a ride home. We see Shane's car coming up this way to bring him home. And then we also see it again when Keith's sister is at the mall and overhears Hardy talking about setting him up for the party, how they're gonna beat him up at the party, and she's riding her bike down this street on her way to their house, which is right over here. So we get Keith coming home and his sister pulling her bicycle into the driveway right up here, but this house was Keith's house in the movie. Now this has got some of my favorite scenes because his dad's a real character. His dad is a working class guy and wants Keith to, you know, to never have to wash his hands after a day's work. So he wants to send Keith to college, but throughout the whole movie, Keith's kind of skirting the issue because he doesn't really want to go to college. There's a part where he asks out Amanda Jones, she accepts for the date, and they're at breakfast and he starts calling his dad Clifford and his mom Carol. And that's one of my favorite lines when his dad goes, she's mom, I'm dad, and you're nuts. But we see when Shane and Amanda Jones bring him home, they actually park the car right here, and Keith gets out and you can see this all in the background. And then the sister then pops in from this side and says, oh, he told you this is where we live? I guess he didn't tell you about the ancestral estate in Scotland and our summers in Paris and that whole shtick. But yeah, this is, you know, this is great because Keith's house, and it's got some character. Didn't have the fence, didn't have all this growth in the front. It was pretty open at the time, and mainly what you see, you don't see as much of this. I'm trying to respect their privacy a little bit, but when you see it, you kind of see it more like that. This has always been kind of a bucket list vlog for me, so 1 down on this amazing Some Kind of Wonderful vlog today. Yeah, you can tell it's kind of reversed now. There used to be a big tree covering up the peaked side of the house. Now there's a big bush covering up the front door side. Hardy and Amanda, that first shot we see is, this is Amanda's house right here. We see kind of a close-up, and all those power cables and everything, all that's all in the shot. So we see Amanda's door fling open and Hardy comes out to leave because they've been inside making out while her parents are gone. She lives, they paint her as you know, the beautiful girl in school and everything, but we find out that she's not rich or anything. So Hardy comes out, jumps over the wall, and then gets in his car and drives off. Pretty cool. The homeowners saw me out filming and started talking to me, and they said actually this was a family home. So what I mean is that this was the people that live here now, this was their grandmother's home when they filmed this. So it's pretty cool. She was telling me, yeah, 1986 they came out here and filmed it all right out front. Then the second time we see it is on date night when Watts agrees to be the driver that night. So they pull up in that classic car that Keith's boss owns right here, and she gets out and says, go get your hag. And Keith goes up to the front door. The owner's actually at the front door. He was cool enough to let me do all this and everything. Goes up to the front door, gets Amanda, and that's where he says, are you ready? And she says, well, I'm standing in the front door, I must be. And he comes out here. They go to get in the car, and that's when they get in. Watts lets Amanda in the car, and Amanda says, do you always bring an extra girl on a date? And he says, well, I like to cover my bets. Cracks a joke. So that's Amanda Jones' house. We get two scenes here. Now that we've seen Amanda Jones' house, I want to go over to Watts' house, but along the way we're going to stop and I'm going to show you where that alleyway is that Watts and Keith are having that conversation in. So right here's the alleyway that we see Watts and Keith walking down. They actually come walking around this corner and they start walking towards us, and that's when they're talking about, Keith, what's it feel like to have all that money in your pocket right now? And he's talking about how he's going to spend it all on Amanda Jones, and she says, your dad, how bad's your dad gonna ream you? They're walking this way. Says, how bad's your dad gonna ream you when he finds out you took the money? He says, well, nothing compared to modern technologies. She says, I'm just giving you a hard time because, you know, it must feel good to have someone care about you. He says, yeah, kinda. So here we are over in Watts' neighborhood, not actually too far from Amanda or Keith's house in the movie. You can see Keith, before this wall was here, a couple of older cars off to the side, but that was pretty vacant even then. Keith comes walking across here to come to Watts' house. So Watts, all those times we see Watts drumming in her house, this would have been her brother's house that she lives with them. Now it's been updated and changed. It looks really good. In the movie it was a single door, and now it's a double door, and that window is now a double window, and it was originally a single window. But this is when Keith finds out that it is true what Watts said, that he's basically being played, and that they're setting him up to go to this party and get beat up. And so he goes in there, and throughout the movie we see that Watts has a crush on Keith, but she's like a tomboy, so he doesn't notice it, he doesn't realize it, and she doesn't want to say anything because she doesn't think that he'll like her like that, because they're such good friends. So they have that moment when they're laying in the bed together and talking about, you know, he's gonna go through with the date anyway. Oh, check out that car. So here we have San Pedro High School. As you might guess, the gates are locked. But you know, you do see them coming and going into that entrance up there. The first time they're at school, Watts and Keith go in there. That's where she's drumming on the kid's skateboard. But then you see once Amanda is shunned by her friends because she's not dating Hardy anymore, all the cool rich kids shun her. She comes out of that exit by herself, starts working her way down these steps, and then once she has made her way down here, right onto these steps, she looks out and sees one of the most a-hole scenes of any movie. She comes down here all distraught because her friends have turned on her, and she sees Hardy right here with the car, looking all smug, and that's when he does this move. But we also see it in another scene. We see it when, before her friends turn on her, Amanda and Shane are coming down these steps, getting ready to leave school for the day, and Keith stops Amanda right here and asks if he can give her a ride home. and she doesn't really want to at first, but Shane tells her she should because that will give her an excuse to, or a way to break up with him or tell him that she doesn't want to go on the date, because of course none of the rich friends that she has want her to go on the date with Keith. So we see Keith and his car is actually parked right up this road. Well, Watt's car, he's asked to borrow Watt's car. His car is parked right up this road, angular, and he can't get it to start. He can't get the car to start or anything. So he ends up giving up, and Amanda starts walking off, and he says they can't get the car to start, so she hops in the car with Shane. And over here on this side, you can kind of see the writing up there on that side of the building in the background of Amanda. They have a big tarp and everything covering up a lot of it, but that San Pedro High School and everything up there, you can see that in the background of the shot. Now they filmed a lot of the scenes here, all the interiors of the high school and everything, that's all supposed to take place in here. And some of my favorite parts of that are that, you know, we see Amanda's life kind of fall apart because she's not with Hardy here, but you see Keith, once she gets her detention, he tries to get detention too, and when he goes to detention, that's where he ends up meeting the odd guys, all the like kind of bad element of the school, and he becomes friends with them. Duncan primarily. First time we see him, when he walks into detention, he goes, "Is this detention?" Duncan says, "No, it's your mother's house and we're all having a party." So he's immediately not welcomed into the group, but then all the times that we see him serving detention, they start bonding. There's one part where he's drawing a sketch and Duncan is sitting next to him with a knife, and he's carving a sketch into the desk and ends up breaking the desk lid off and showing Keith what he's done. And then later on, one of my all-time favorite moments in a movie, when Duncan's working on something and he shows Keith and he goes, "This is what my girlfriend would look like with no skin." I always thought that was just one of the funniest things. So this kind of is a great time for him, because him befriending all these guys, eventually when he ends up going to the party, they come to his rescue. Now this is the road that we see Hardy bringing Amanda in his car up this road, and you can actually see that little, there's a basketball court over there fenced in. You can see that as they're driving up. When she's cutting school, she's cutting phys ed class, and he's driving her up here. At the time, this big wall, this big brick wall and everything, that did not exist, but he ends up pulling up right over here, and I'll show you how I was able to find out that that was exactly where it was. So Hardy would have ended up pulling his car right up here, right where this pull-in is, and he would have let Amanda out to go into the end of phys ed right here. The way you can tell is because, and this has changed, now it's a baseball diamond. At the time of filming, it was also a basketball court. But you can see, because they do a shot, like a turnaround shot, looking towards us as Amanda goes to join her class. And you see Hardy, his car is pulling out from here. And you can see, at the time, that would have been a yellowish orange structure with those two peaked roofs right there. But you can also see all of those garage doors in the background as well. So look at my turnaround matchup shot and you'll see all of this in the background when Hardy's car is pulling out of here. So throughout the movie, Hardy is pretty much openly cheating on Amanda, and she just kind of always walks into it right at the end, but she finally catches him at one point, and I'm going to take us over there where that is and tell what happened there. And this location is going to take us to Rolling Hills. So here's our big climactic scene in the movie. I love this part. This is where Keith becomes a man in the movie. We see, well, we'll walk over here. We see Amanda and Shane are walking down this staircase right here. And you see that little thing in the wall as they're walking down. And when she gets down here, she sees Hardy, her boyfriend, and Chynna Phillips, who he's kissing and everything right here. And she says, "There's Amanda." And Amanda comes down and says, "You know, Hardy, I'm getting really sick of this." He says, "You know, this jealousy thing," and they're having that conversation right here, "is getting a little bit tedious." She says, "Well, you're not gonna have to deal with it much longer." She says, "Maybe if you were more of a man, you could handle 2 women, but you're not." And he says, "You walk out on me, Amanda, where are you gonna go?" And right then, Keith is across the street, right here, and there was a brick seat thing, and he calls Amanda's name. So she comes over here, and they have a conversation right here where this entrance is, and there was like a brick wall thing. He's been kind of looking for an opportunity to ask her out, and when he sees that they're having this fight, he asks her out right here, right in this very spot. He would have been standing here, and she would have been standing here. And in the background, you can see this building over Keith's shoulder while he's watching all the confrontation between Hardy and Amanda. But while he's asking Amanda out, you can see over Watts' shoulder, Watts is sitting on top of her car, and that building is in the background. And of course, she's upset because she likes Keith. But Amanda says yes. She says that they will go on a date, and Amanda starts walking back across the street over to where Shane and Hardy are. And Shane said, "What did he want?" She said, "He asked me out, and I said yes." And then they walk off this way. I decided not to do this vlog in chronological order, otherwise where we're going next would have been probably one of the first stops. We're gonna head off to where Keith's job is. Now, Keith is in high school, so it's kind of crazy that he has this job, especially because it looks like he's the only one that works there. So we're gonna head up into Los Angeles on Pico Boulevard. Yeah, pretty crazy how similar this looks even today from when they filmed the movie in 1986. Alright, here's our next location. Looks like it's a closed auto body shop, but this is where Keith works. Yeah, Keith basically is an auto mechanic and works at a gas station here. And we see all the scenes, well, there's 2 main scenes that we see inside. Right in there, that's where Keith is always doing the work, and Watts is drumming on the owner's classic car underneath the tarp over there, and he tells her to stop. And then when he starts taking the oil and changing the oil on the car, that's when he says, "Can I ask you, what do you think about Amanda Jones?" And she kind of says she doesn't think about her, and says that she thinks that, you know, she's from the rich group, and she thinks that people like Amanda Jones just look down on everyone else. And when they start talking about it, she starts really kind of like bad-mouthing Amanda and angles it towards Keith, and he says, "I'm just asking about her, and you're getting all upset talking about her." And Watts says, "Don't go confusing a paradise for a pair of long legs." And they keep talking about it, and then all of a sudden they hear a horn honk. And even though now there are no gas pumps, over there where that silver car is would have been the Far gas pump, and that's pretty much where Hardy pulls up his car with Amanda Jones in the car and honks and has Keith come over and fill up his gas, and then says, "So you like to look at my girlfriend, huh?" Tells him to look under the hood, and while Keith is checking the oil under the hood, Hardy honks the horn a couple of times. It's just a real jerk. And then when he goes to leave, he says, "Here's 10 for the gas and 10 for the look," and then he drops it out of the window of his car onto the ground, kind of to humiliate Keith. So when Hardy drives off towards us, we see Keith reach down, pick up the money, but then he also has Hardy's dipstick from his car and throws it in the trash right in between where that car is and where this van would be. Now we also see this again when Keith has his date and Watts is here hanging out and starts talking to him about do you think that you can deliver a kiss that will kill? You have to give Amanda the kiss of a lifetime, basically. And he says, I think I can. Yeah, I mean, I think I can do it. She goes, well, if you think you can, you probably can. I was just gonna offer to help you work on it. And so in here is where Keith and Watts have their kiss, quote unquote, to work on it, but you know this is just Watts' favorite moment of her life. And then it gets awkward afterward. And he says, no, 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 you're pretty. And she goes, if this is the thanks I get for helping you, and starts walking off. And the way that you can tell is as she's walking off basically the same area where Hardy's car was, you can see that there was a diner right on the corner. You can see the glass for the diner and it's still there. Let's go over and take a look. There would have originally been a place where you could pull in for gas here, and then over here where Hardy's car was another gas pump, and you can see this glass right there that used to be a diner as Watts is walking towards us from the garage. So as far as the date goes, we can't really do any of those places because they're all closed. The Koi restaurant is closed right now because of COVID. Hollywood Bowl is closed because of COVID. And the museum that Duncan's dad works into, and Duncan sneaks them in, and Keith has put the painting he made of Amanda up to show her, that's also closed. So I figured, why bother going to any of those if they're all closed and we can't see anything? So we're gonna go to where this all culminates right at the end, Hardy Jen's party, Hardy's house. Well, right here is Hardy Jen's house. Kind of funny, it's right across the street from Rob Zombie's house. But Watts pulls up in that classic car to bring them to the party, even though Watts doesn't want to bring him. Amanda Jones doesn't want to come because Keith wants to do this. Keith wants to challenge, he wants to confront Hardy. He knows that he's going to be set up here, and he knows that he's not supposed to know, but he shows up, goes in, finds Hardy, and then they start talking about Amanda. Hardy starts insulting her, and Hardy gets attacked by Keith. And then Hardy's buddies all hold him back, and he basically says, well, Amanda, you're gonna have to beg to have me back to not have him beat up, because Hardy keeps telling his friends to take Keith outside and beat him up. And then right before they're about to do it, in a back door comes Duncan and all the guys from the detention class. All of his buddies from there all come in and decide they're gonna wipe the floor with Hardy and his friends. I love it. Duncan says, you know why we're here, you deserve it. And he goes, fellas, these ladies have been looking at you like I don't know what. And then Keith and Amanda Jones come walking out the door, walking along the side and then down this front walk. And once they make it down here, Watts is down here. And Watts basically says that she's gonna call it a night, and she starts walking that way. And right here, Amanda and Keith are talking about how she now realizes that Keith really should be with Watts. And so she says, it's gonna feel good to stand on my own, to not need someone else or to rely on him. And gives him back the diamond earrings that Keith had given her on the date, and says, you know who these really belong to. And then we see Keith take off up that way looking for Watts. So it really was across the street. You just cross 6th Street, and the other part of Hudson, which is the street that the house was on, Watts is walking up this way, and Keith walks up, and that's when he says, I'm sorry, I didn't know. And she goes, yeah, it's because you're stupid. And then they start kissing right here, and the way you can tell is, even though it's dark in the background, you can see that white house in the distance behind them. So Keith picks her up, and they get to resume that magical kiss that they had at the garage when they're doing that kiss, and Watts goes, okay, lesson's over, you're good. You can tell that she's throttled by the kiss, so he gives her the earrings, they kiss, and that's the end of our movie. Like I said, that's the end of our movie. And you probably noticed while I was vlogging it that The house they used for Hardy's house is for sale. Since this vlog ended up in the Hollywood area, I decided to stop for maybe one of the last times in a long time over at one of my favorite places, Fat Sal's. Can't wait to dig into this. I was shocked to hear a little mention of Fat Sal's in the Cobra Kai show when he fires his friend, or his cousin Louie. He mentions that he's doing inventory now when he comes back to LaRusso because he worked at Fat Sal's and inventories everything there. And I was a fan of Biggie and I like this mural. It was all a dream. Hollywood is just a mess now. Tents on every corner. Well, my friends, we're gonna call it a day. I wanna thank Georgia Cox and Gary Strout for becoming my newest Patreons. Thank you all for watching, and we'll see you all next time. Have a great night, and goodbye.